freaking love to lead in business. Absolutely. But a lot of us then take it home and we don't communicate necessarily with our partners what role we want to take.
The truth is that we can be, masculine and powerful and get stuff done in business, and we can go home and be nurturing and soft and caring and loving and all of that.
Yeah.
Lisa, so hot, by the way.
Oh, it was super freaking hot. At the time, I was like, I get to have a hot fling with my American teacher.
Dude.
Like,
I ain't trying to get between you. I'm just trying to get between you.
Lisa Bilyeu, co-founder of Impact Theory, Quest Nutrition, and host of Women of Impact.
hell yeah.
Welcome to Beyond. I'm so excited.
What up, Amy? So glad to be here.
I'm so excited because I interviewed your husband and now I'm interviewing you, so I feel like I got the married couple. It's the dream team.
You must have done a great job, girl, because he came home and he's like, babe, you got to do that interview. She was wonderful.
Really?
Yeah, and he does a lot of interviews, so he was like, oh, we spoke about relationships. And so I was like, oh, do tell.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, he talked a lot about that. I think one of the themes that we talked about quite a bit, and it's very polarizing and very popular, is the whole masculinity, femininity conversation that's happening. And I think people are triggered a lot because of, the girl boss culture and women going out and working and having kids later. And now there are dual income families, things like that. I've been seeing so much of, men who are like, I want a woman who's staying at home. I want it to go back to the way it was. Things should be traditional. That's the only way the family can survive. And, you're in a very successful, happy marriage where you guys are a team. And I see that. So what's your take on all this?
Oh, God, this is such a beautiful topic. It's so damn nuanced, and people want to blanket statement. And so what I mean by that is it's not one or the other. I was the stay-at-home wife that was absolutely taking care of my husband, the traditional role, if you will. And I was brought up Greek Orthodox, so that felt like that was supposed to be the path that I was supposed to go down, even though I had big dreams. Now, after 8 years, I realized I didn't enjoy it. All the dreams as a kid that I had gone. And I started to stare at myself and not recognize who I was anymore. And in that, it forced me to speak up, to talk to Tom. Quest started. It was very unexpected. And over my evolution in helping my husband out, I started to realize what I was made of. And so in that process, I realized I love business. And so going from being a stay-at-home wife that is literally your purpose is to provide for your husband.
Right.
To then go, your husband's on his own. He has to figure out his clothing. He has to figure out his food. How the hell do you, A, navigate that as business partners, and then B, navigate that as a couple? And I realized there were multiple elements. Neither was right or wrong. Me staying at home wasn't right or wrong. Me going to work wasn't right or wrong. It was what was right for me, not right for society. And I realized it was definitely working. But now how do you communicate that? I married a guy where I told him I wanted 4 children. So he married me, I made him a promise, and I was the one changing the script. So I had to approach him and be honest with him about where I was, how I was feeling emotionally, and the fact that it wasn't his doing. I was the one that said, yes, I'll stay at home. I was the one that never spoke up. I was the one that didn't tell him I was happy.
You never spoke up?
No, I never spoke up. I didn't tell him I was unhappy because, now going back to the belief system that I had, was that's where I was supposed to be. So every time in my book, I actually call it a chapter where it's like open up the can of worms and embrace the ick. The can of worms is asking yourself the hard question, am I happy in this marriage, this relationship, being a stay-at-home wife? And so many of us don't want to ask it because we don't want to deal with the mess that comes with the reality of the answer. Now, what I mean by that is I had to ask myself eventually, because I was just so profoundly unhappy, do you still want to be at home? And the answer was no. Now there's a whole load of things that come along with deciding I no longer want to be at home. What if my husband divorces me? If he turned around and said, you broke the promise, what am I going to do? So there's a whole load of things that you have to deal with asking yourself the real question. And so as I asked myself, I just had to do it because I'd spent 8 years not asking myself the question. Yeah. So I pulled him aside and I took ownership. Step number 1, babe, I haven't told you that I'm profoundly unhappy. I haven't told you that cooking and cleaning for you doesn't satisfy me. Now, I need you to hear, it has nothing to do with how I feel about you. It has nothing to do with how much I love you, but it doesn't make me happy anymore. So I had to acknowledge that. I had to be honest with him. And in his response, he's like, why didn't you tell me? You think that I would rather you cook and clean above your happiness? He was like, that's not the husband I want to be. So that was being transparent. And second of all, explaining to him what I wanted my future to look like. So I said, babe, I really want to try my hand at this business thing, right? Quest was growing at 57,000%. So I went from helping out my husband shipping bars on my living room floor one day to within 2 years, I was developing my own production line, and we were shipping out $82 million worth of inventory in 2 years. So I had to really take ownership over, do I really want to do this, and am I going to go all in? And the answer was yes. So I had to tell Tom that this makes me happy. I want to do this more. But now here's the thing. You have to give the other person the ability and the space to grieve. Now, what do I mean by that? Is I was changing the person that I was. I was telling Tom, I don't want to put your clothes out. I don't want to cook for you. So there needs to be a transition period. It isn't just I decide and now he has to get in line, right, as my partner. No, you have to give your partner grace. To your point, when you asked the question, right, you did it as a team. And that was damn important to me. He's going to be with me on this journey.
But there are two other elements that I noticed when you were speaking. One, you were very meticulous about your delivery and the way you communicated. Yes. And two, Tom created the safety for you to do that.
Yes, 1,000%. So thank you for saying that, because you have to, being with someone is, do you trust them to be able to talk like this without them throwing it back in your face, the safety element, right? So I knew that no matter what, I didn't know whether he was going to leave me or not. You can't predict that. I knew that he wouldn't, though, hold it against me for being honest.
Right.
And that was an agreement we had almost from day one. Do we agree that we're always going to say the hard thing? Yes. Okay, cool. So he's already given me the space, like you said. So when I approached him with this, it was like, babe, this is what I want. This is the new life that I'm looking for. But how can I support you as my partner, knowing I'm changing? How can I support you so that we can go through this together? And it was the grieving that we basically came up with. It was like, wow, I actually almost have to embrace grieving the wife you used to be. Not that it's bad, but there has to be that transition period and really accepting the wife that you're becoming. So I said, great, let's do this together. What does that look like? So we created a game plan on this week I'm going to cook for you 6 days a week. Next week I'm going to do 5 days a week. The week after I'm going to do 4 days a week, and so on and so forth, to the point where I'm no longer going to cook for you or clean for you. And he was totally on board because we did it together. And so back to the question of like even just the masculine and the feminine, it was a articulation between us about the roles we were playing in the relationship. If that changed, I articulated the change to him, and then we came up with a new game plan together. So it was, all right, babe, I'm going to buy the food, but you have to now cook. Are you okay with that? Yes, great. Now we have an agreement. And now there's no resentment. There's no part of him that is a build-up, right? Year after year. It's like, oh, I can't believe it. She was the one. Once upon a time, right? Because we've done it together. I've showed him the respect because I haven't just said, hey, this is who I want to be now. And as my husband, you have to accept it. That never works. And then we did it together. And so that was the important part, that now he can feel pride over helping his wife and supporting his wife transition to become happy.
And now you're happy.
And I mean, look, happy is an ebb and a flow. I don't like to think of happy as a final state. So I ebb and flow happiness, but under my own terms, doing what I love to do. And in this whole story, as I started building Quest and the department, I started to hire ex-convicts because of where our first facility was. It was in Compton. And Tom had dealt with, had worked with a lot of inner city people before. And he was like, babe, they're just incredible humans. And just because you've maybe been brought up in an environment where you've made a mistake in the past and, you know, God forbid, maybe you've gone to prison, that doesn't dictate who you are as a human. And if you can show up today and work hard, as a person, we want to support that. So in our first facility at Quest, we literally said, we don't care if you've got a criminal record. Who are you today and who do you want to be? and will support that. So now I'm 5'1", in case people don't know. So 5'1" British person, right? Building a shipping department. I had 6'5" dudes with tats, and then we even had a guy with a teardrop under his eye. I'll say no more. Maybe people know what that means. Maybe people don't. So now imagine I come from North London, being British, 5'1", having to command respect from 6'5" guys. Convicts, yeah. And so I knew I had to get tough. I was like, they're going to walk all over me. Now, what I did is my version at the time of being extremely inexperienced, tough meant be a dude. Right? So I went in just trying to be a bull in a china shop. It's like, well, no one's going to push me around. That's what guys are like, so I should be like that. Now, here's the thing. I brought that home with me. And over time, as I started to be more powerful and more strong and get more confident in my position, I was becoming hard in every aspect of my life. And so I was bringing that home. And so the hard conversation that Tom and I had to have was, he said, babe, I understand you're an entrepreneur. I support that. You know I do. I've shown you. I understand that you have to get hard because you can't be pushed around. Being a leader means you've got to have a strong backbone. So he was like, I get that too. The problem is you've brought so much. He didn't use the word masculinity, but I'm just going to put it here for context. He's like, but you brought that masculinity home, and you're no longer the sweet, loving, maternal wife that I also love in you. And so I had to hear him with open ears, because imagine this is who I am and you want to make me weak. No, he's not freaking saying that. He's being honest about the fact that he loves both sides. He loves the nurturing side. And so when I paused and said, there's no right or wrong, he's just being honest. He's not wrong for saying that, right? Your preference are your preference. So if I could just accept that this is his truth, do I accept it? Not do I take it as my truth, but do I accept it? Sorry, is that something that aligns with me? So I paused, I heard him out, I gave him the space, which is very respectful. And then I walked away and I was like, I need to think about this. And I was like, actually, I love being nurturing. And that girl was the point where I realized, oh shit, we're doing all women a disservice, because we're saying, be a freaking badass, go after what you want. And yet we're not actually, and I'm part of the problem, right? I'm also not addressing the other side of it. That is absolutely, I freaking love that I can be soft. I absolutely freaking love that when my feet hurt, my husband can give me a piggyback. I love that, you know what, if I had a rustling outside and I thought someone was about to break in, you better believe I'm turning to my husband and be like, babe, can you go check to see if someone's breaking in? And that's where I realized every single person can command and demand whatever they want. And what I mean by that is I absolutely can show up in business and be a freaking badass, and you can't push me around. And I'm tapping deliberately into my masculinity. And I mean that with pride. I can say that, goddamn yes. And at the same time, girl, I can be proud that I can go home and be this squishy, emotional woman that wants to snuggle with her husband. And being able to own both is strength. It isn't freaking weakness. And I think the message that has got out in the world is you have to choose. And if you want to be a stay-at-home wife, then that means you're soft. Screw that, hell no. You can be whatever you want, but it has to be deliberate. It has to be, how do I lean into my personality or my feminist side here? And how do I lean into my masculine side over here? And I have tools, I have tactics that I use to deliberately empower myself to lean into that side of things. And it's from the way that I dress, wearing my clothes, my heels, my hair, my bag, I've got these, you probably can hear it clinking, the sound guy's probably giving me a dirty look right now. But I wear big watches because it makes me feel like it's my Wonder Woman outfit, my cuffs. But when I go home and I want to be soft, I know what I want to feel like. So I take my jewelry off, I pull my hair up, I take my makeup off, and I put on fluffy Wonder Woman pajamas. Like, I actually have fluffy Wonder Woman pajamas because I know what it does to my emotions and I know what it does to my psyche. And when I'm home, I want to be soft. And so because I know what I want and because I know how to pull the levers, if you will, to create that and make myself feel like that, I can really easily now somewhat bounce between masculine and feminine whenever I like. And I pride myself on being able to do both.
Today's episode of Beyond is brought to you by MoonPay. MoonPay is your portal to Web3 where you can transact with peers globally and own your digital identity. MoonPay makes it fast and simple to jumpstart your Web3 journey. Quickly use your debit or credit card to buy and sell crypto and purchase digital collectibles. Visit moonpay.com to get started.